Hello, my friends, and welcome to No Nonsense Metal Reviews. I'm George, back once again with another collection update. Just taking you through a few of the recent additions to the ever growing collection. Once again, I've been trying to fill in some gaps in the collection. Few pretty important articles, well, seemingly important anyway, a few names I've heard so many things about, influential bands, which have been gaps in my knowledge. Basically, I haven't actually put in the work up until recently, and also trying to fill in the gaps in discographies. I'm a bit of a completionist. I like to have the full discography, at least of the studio albums. I'll only go for the official stuff, not interested in bootlegs and all that business, but once again, been buying more stuff. We'll start off with some speed metal. Well, speed thrash metal. We're going with Grinder from Germany. Now, this is a band that I had only ever heard sort of whisperings about, only ever good things. They were meant to be very influential, despite being quite short lived. There's only 3 full length albums that this band released between, I think it was like 1988 and 91. So, not a huge amount of releases, but within that time, that short catalogue influenced a lot of bands. I think they then went on and changed their name, tried things a little bit different maybe, and it didn't quite work. So they are no longer around. But the first album that we've got, this is probably my favourite of the two. This is Dawn for the Living. This is a bit of a ripper. So I'm going to say it's speed metal. This is obviously a much more recent reissue via Hammerheart Records. It's a great album, actually. It's really quite impressive, I would say. It's definitely, tail end of the kind of the thrash scene, 88. That's a little bit maybe late to the party, but actually it's really freaking good. It does remind me of certain pioneering thrash bands or really prominent bands, maybe some other German notable thrash speed metal bands. Yeah, there's always going to be that kind of similarity there. But actually, just getting to grips with these albums, I've really enjoyed them. I think they are quite unique. Certainly this one, the debut. So it's got some killer tracks on here. Dawn for the Living is a great track. Sinner's Exile absolutely rips. We've got Magician, good track. Frenzied Hatred is a bit of a standout moment there, as is Dying Flesh. Delirium, Traitor, and then there's the rather strange sort of punky FOAD, or FOAD. Well, I'm sure we all know what that stands for, but it's actually just a really good album. And I'm all about the thrash and speed metal at the minute. I can't deny. If you follow the channel, no doubt you've probably observed the number of thrash bands and speed metal bands I've been talking about recently, and Grinder's another good one. I'd recommend this band if you like good old speed metal, thrash metal. If you like it fast and enjoyably heavy, Grinder, good one to go for. The second album, Dead End. This is a good album. Great cover, and there are some really solid tracks on this. We've got the excellent opening track, Agent Orange, of course, not to be confused with another notable German band, and their album, and indeed pioneering track, Agent Orange. But it's a really solid number. Good album opener. The title track is great. The Blade is back rather strong. Total Control. Train Raid can do without, but the closing track, Unlock the Morgue, is another good one as well. It's another strong album. Enjoyable stuff. Still need to give it a few more spins and really get to grips with it. Seem to be struggling to track down the third album, though. Will admit that seems like a hard one to get hold of unless you want to pay well above the odds. But yeah, strong couple of albums here. I definitely recommend them for anyone who's into their speed or thrash metal. Definitely. So that's a very strong band. from Germany, late 80s. Now we're going to go right across the world. We're going to go to Dallas, Texas. And we're going to go for a band which is absolutely incredible how they've just rocketed in their fan base and their popularity over the years. You know, they've faced their trials and they've gone through their hardships, but Power Trip absolutely freaking rips. Absolutely rips. And I had the pleasure of seeing Power Trip a few weeks back at the Norwich waterfront venue, which is, if you're familiar with Norwich, it's a small venue. You know, it's a small, basically just a warehouse downstairs. It's a good venue. It's a legendary venue. That is, honestly, I would say Power Trip there was the most energetic and frenzied show I have seen in that venue. It went nuclear. It absolutely was incredible. You know, Power Trip absolutely thrashed up a storm. And if you want evidence of Power Trip's capabilities live, then this little ditty, live in Seattle on it would have been the 28th of May 2018. This is a great live album, and this showcases Power Trip in excellent form. Of course, it's bittersweet as Riley Gale, vocalist, is no longer with us. Of course, the band basically was on hold or disappeared for quite a while, but then they did finally decide to come back and carry on. The new vocalist is very capable. It was great. There was a nod at that Norwich show to how great Riley was, and he did a decent job though. You know, so there's no lack of quality there. The whole band absolutely freaking ripped, and this live album is great. They absolutely tear through some brilliant tracks from both albums, in fact. So the first album, Manifest Decimation, is represented very strongly here. Nightmare Logic also gets its moments, but this is so good. And I picked this up for, it was like a $5 on Amazon. And I'm glad I did, because you just put it on and this is so energetic. It just rips start to finish. It's great. Divine Apprehension is absolutely killer. Just trying to pick out a few choice moments. Obviously the brilliant execution as Tax, Swing of the Axe, is a standout moment there. Crucifixation is brilliant. Heretic's Fork, Firing Squad, Crossbreaker. Love it. I love Power Trip. I think they're such a killer band. Shamefully, I don't have a copy of Manifest Decimation. Need to get that. I've got Nightmare Logic somewhere in here, but this is great. If you like live albums and you like energetic thrashing, Power Trip live in Seattle, one you need to hear. It's got a real strong sort of crossover vibe in there. There's a lot of hardcore attitude and aggression. Decent stuff, absolutely brilliant, rips. Some of the catchiest riffing stuff I've heard in a long time. Probably the catchiest riffing stuff that hasn't been produced by Pantera. Let's face it, this is a band that's not too far off that kind of money riff mark. Power Trip live in Seattle, a good one, very solid live album to pick up. Sticking with America, I think this band is actually from Virginia. I believe this album was released in '99. I don't quite know. I know it's the third album from Deceased, all the way from Virginia, as I say. Don't know a huge amount about this band. I will admit, it's been a criminal kind of gap in my knowledge for a long time, until fairly recently, when I finally tracked down a CD. I think this is the third album, Fearless Undead Machines. Their stuff is very expensive to get hold of in this country. Here in the UK, obviously, that seems to be the way at the minute. Everything is just ridiculously expensive in this country or across the world. But I actually found this on Amazon, CD, very nice version, Hell's Headbangers. Might not be able to see it all that clearly, but we've got a gold disc there. Nice little thing to have. This was about £7 or £8, I think it was. So that's much better. So I finally decided a little while ago to put in the effort and check out Deceased. Do a little bit of YouTube research as you do, and I was loving what I was hearing. You know, the range of styles that they've explored. There's strong vibes, primarily death metal, almost like death thrash. But there's almost like traditional heavy metal vibes in there, as well as speed metal. They've got the whole horror aesthetics. It's great, actually. It's brilliant. I'm kicking myself for not exploring them further and earlier, to be honest. But I have since acquired a whole bunch of Deceased tapes, courtesy of the Darkness Shall Rise Productions web store. But yeah, this is a good album. I'm really enjoying this one. It's a bit of a strange one. It's quite a long album. I think it's only like 11 tracks in total, but they're quite long songs. And it's a concept about these fearless undead machines. A very good album. It's a heavy album, but it's not ridiculously heavy. It's definitely one, if you haven't heard it, check it out, definitely. If you like death metal, thrash metal, speed metal, heavy metal, they've kind of covered all bases. There's some particularly decent tracks. The title track is really strong. Contamination, I believe, is like an interlude piece there. Silent Creature, the opening track. Night of the Deceased, strong. There's a great kind of succession of tracks. They're a little bit strange, a little bit off the cuff. We've got Graphic Repulsion, mysterious research into beyond science, which is a good succession. Unhuman Drama, The Psychic, Destiny. It's a long 9-minute closing track. Really strong. So actually, I wish I had checked them out sooner. Deceased, they're a good band, and I'm looking forward to exploring more of their catalogue, definitely. So up next, I've got a band that I am very familiar with. I've been a big fan of God Dethroned since I first heard them many moons ago. I can't even really remember at what time or with what album I was first introduced to this great band. But this album, The Toxic Touch, has been a gap for a long time. And now they've just released their most recent album. So I don't know if it was tail end of 24 or 25. I know that I haven't got it yet because it's extremely expensive. But the Judas Paradox. So I've now got another gap. But that seems to be getting good response, good reception. This is an interesting album. So can't quite recall what number this is, but this is released in 2006. And if you're familiar with God Dethroned, Dutch death metalers, melodic death metalers, you could call them, certainly death metal, good old school death metal at times, they've got some great albums. And they're a really consistent, really reliable band. Brilliant band. Love God Dethroned. This is regarded as one of their kind of most commercial or accessible albums. I would certainly disagree with the kind of commercial stance. I'd say that it's a great album. It's memorable. It's heavy, really heavy. In fact, there's some really heavy tracks like the opening, "Faithless" and "Hating Life." Great stuff. "Falling Down," "On Wings of Pestilence." You've got some really decent tracks here. And God Dethroned they just deliver. They don't, in my opinion, they don't have any bad albums. They're a great band. This album is very, very much a melodic death metal album. I think that's fair to say. But it's a great one. In this format, so I picked this up. It was a second-hand German import from some seller on eBay. But it's got a DVD with it as well, which is always cool. So, got a nice little double disc here. Got some pretty brutal aesthetics going on there. Not really sure. Interesting. A great band. God Dethroned are definitely a band you need to hear if you haven't already. Really good stuff. So I'm enjoying this one after not hearing it. Only ever hearing a couple of bits and pieces on YouTube or whatever. Definitely glad to have filled in that gap in my God Dethroned collection finally. Good bands, always great riffs, and I think that's the real standout with this one. It's more palatable, yeah, melodic death metal, not quite maybe as extreme as some of their earlier albums. I'd say it's still good. It's quite refined. It's quite a refined album, but solid band. God Dethroned, Toxic Touch. What is not refined and is absolutely raw and savage is this final article. Now, it might surprise some to know that I haven't actually picked up a copy of Repulsion's Horrified previously, given that I love Napalm Death, Carcass, Terrorizer, love those kind of death grind bands. And Repulsion really did inspire so many of those bands. You know, their impact is monumental. And, you know, there's been associations with bands like Carcass helping them to release their material in some form or another. But for whatever reason, I think probably cost, just hadn't really gotten round to picking up a copy of Horrified. I'm really glad that I did, though. I finally picked up a copy. I think this album was originally released, I want to say it was late 80s, 88, 89. In this format, we've got pretty much everything else as well. So we've got the album, Horrified. It's a really nice package, 2 discs. We've got Horrified on disc 1. The second disc, we've got demo from 84, demo from 85, 86. We've got live tracks from 86 as well. We've got the Excruciation EP demo as well, and the final demos from 91. So you've pretty much got everything, to my knowledge, in this really nice package. And actually it is a really nice package because you get the booklet here with lots of pictures and posters and stuff, a little bit of information about the releases, but you also get some interesting narrative there as well. You get the kind of the story about Repulsion, where they came from and all that. They're really good. I mean, considering this material was from the 1980s, you know, around the time, or in some cases really predating a lot of those early death metal bands like Mantas or Death or Terrorizer, Death Grind stuff, Napalm Death, Carcass. You know, this was savage, ridiculously savage stuff. This is grinding death metal. It's awesome. I would say it's definitely ahead of its time, and it's brutal, it's manic, it's fast, it's furious. Great stuff here though. I will admit, I've only listened to this album a handful of times, maybe 4 or 5 times, but it's one of those albums you put it on and you can't help but be absolutely whipped up in a storm of speed. We've got Stench of Burning Death, Eaten Alive, Acid Bath, Radiation Sickness, Splattered Cadavers, 6 Feet Under, Bodily Dismemberment, Repulsion. It's great. It's savage stuff. Yeah, it's for fans of the sick. If you like fast and frantic death metal, old school death metal, if you like death grind, Repulsion, absolutely, you need to check out Horrified. It's freaking brilliant. Kicking myself for not checking out that one sooner, really. Absolutely brilliant. You know, it's got those great kind of growling vocals, the instruments, you know, there's a lot of distortion there. It's heavily distorted, absolute fuzz, rumbling, thunderous bass, total drum clamor, but it's great. It's absolutely, it freaking works. So absolutely, if you like death grind, grindcore, old school death metal, Horrified, an album you need to hear. So that's all that we have for this little humble collection update today. Just to run you back through there, we've got a couple of releases from Grinder, being, well, actually the debut first album, Dawn for the Living, and Dead End. Solid German speed metal from a nation that has produced so many great speed and thrash bands. Then we've got from Dallas, Texas, we've got Power Trip, live in Seattle, absolutely brilliant album. Deceased with Fearless Undead Machines, third album, brilliant album, a long one, good concept there. I'm enjoying it. And the Toxic Touch from Dutch melodic death metalers, old school death metalers, whatever you want to call them. God Dethroned, freaking legends. and Repulsion with Horrified. Absolutely marvellous band. So, what are your thoughts and opinions on these bands, on these albums? Any particular choice picks here? Any favourites? Have you got these albums in your collection? Let me know. Interested to hear thoughts and opinions of others, as always. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed this humble collection update. Do check back soon for more reviews and recommendations of all the good heavy things. Until next time, do take care of yourselves, listen to metal, support metal, and stay heavy.